Today we're going to talk about why you should use a realtor when purchasing a property. In your opinion, Nick, I know everybody talks about that we should use lawyers for our transactions. What happens if you don't give frequently asked questions?
It's really important to have a team supporting you throughout a transaction, because without that, you are going against professionals that do this every day. It's super important to have an agent in your corner and a real estate attorney on the back end, making sure a transaction's closed.
I had a lady call me the other day and she's like, can you put together a contract for my father who's selling his property? And I said, okay, and where did you get the price from? And, how do they not know that they're selling it for the right price? I guess people come up with their own numbers. It's kind of weird.
We got an as-is contract one time. It was a for sale by owner, unrepresented buyer. So we had to deal with no agents. And the seller was under the impression that as is meant they can lie about things with the property because the buyer was to take the property as is.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders. And I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week, we talk about something to help you make a little money, save a little money, or maybe just help you navigate this crazy world we live in. And boy, oh boy, is it crazy. The things that go on today makes you really think about what went on before we had phones, what went on before we had televisions. Not the things that go on today, I don't think. But today we're going to talk about why you should use a realtor when purchasing a property. And with me today to discuss this is attorney Nicholas Fierella with JK Closing Attorneys. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So it's a new year.
Yes, it is.
New resolutions.
Yep. Keep the weight off. That's the big one.
It's not easy. I followed yesterday was day one of 14 of no sugars. I actually lost 2 pounds.
There you go.
Let's see what tomorrow brings.
Consistency is key.
Yes, there is consistency. But I was saying that New Year's resolution, I went to a hypnotist to stop shopping. Today is day 13 and I have not shopped.
That is great.
That is very good. So let's see how this goes. Because I did do a hypnotist about 15 years ago to get off of Diet Coke. I was off of Diet Coke for about 9 months till I saw how much weight I gained. And I went right back on the Diet Coke. So I think it can be slipped up a little bit if you want it to be.
Definitely.
So in your opinion, Nick, I know everybody talks about that we should use lawyers for our transactions, which I agree, because I, first of all, believe a lot of realtors don't know how to read our contract. That's first and foremost. There's a lot of little things in that contract that can really slip you up. One that just jumps off the top of my head is when you're selling a condo, frequently asked questions. Tell our listeners what happens if you don't give frequently asked questions.
Well, the association is supposed to have them. Chances are they don't. Especially with the changes that have been happening, you see a little bit more prudency, so to speak, from the associations, but they're usually not there. So in that case, you need the realtor at the onset of either getting the listing or submitting an offer, more so for the seller side, in terms of protection. You need that at the onset of your listing. You need to get all the information, all the documents that are listed in the condo rider. But if you don't have the frequently asked questions and you don't present it to the buyer basically has a carte blanche way out of the contract if they haven't received that. So you can get to the closing date, everything else looks good, and the buyer can just basically say, hey, I'm out. I don't have the required documentation. So having the agent to get that information, get that documentation at the onset of the listing, not even in transaction, and giving it at the onset of the transaction can avoid that.
Well, I will tell you that a lot of condos do not have frequently asked questions readily available. I have sent them blank forms with the questions to answer. Some of them are very difficult and tell us that that's a charge because that's a condo questionnaire, which it is not. So I know that this is a really good reason why sometimes people, agents and sellers, should be using an attorney like yourself in order to strong arm them into giving these documents, because there are Florida statutes that need to be followed. And then lastly, my question is to you is, let's say where, again, you don't have the frequently asked questions because they don't have one. You're constantly sending them the blank form, asking them to fill it out. You're now past the buyer's due diligence. And now, let's say 5 days after due diligence is over, you give them the frequently asked questions. Now that would stop them from being able to get out of the contract, correct?
They have a 7-day review period. So they have 7 days to review.
To review the frequently asked questions, or what specific documents?
The bylaws, the financials, the most recent year-end financials, any budget, any of those documents listed on the condo rider, which is 5, 6, or 7 documents that are super important for condos. If they're not given entirely together, let's say you give 2 years prior last year's year financial statement. But so let's say you gave 2023, but 2024 is the last one, or you gave 2024, but 2025 was the last one. I doubt 2025 is available yet at this point because of the end of the year being now. So a lot of the time now at this point in time, we are looking at the end of the last year's financial statement that they have is 2024. So we need to make sure that all of those documents are given to a buyer, otherwise they can get out of the contract.
That is very interesting. So, wow. That's why I try to get all this. I have a whole checklist, and I try to get all of this as, soon as I can.
It's definitely important to, like you were mentioning, having an attorney in your corner, having an agent in your corner. So, both aspects to have a whole team on your side as you enter into a contract, whether you're a buyer or seller, is super important. And arguably, the agent's the most important person in a transaction. They're the one that is communicating regularly. They're the one that is setting expectations for the clients. They're the one that is providing, support throughout the entire transaction from before you go under contract. They're the one showing up at your house at 8 o'clock at night to help get ready to set staging for a listing or to meet somebody for an inspection. So, it's really important. And then on the back end, having an attorney to help with these little nuances of the contract and of real estate law in general. So, it's really important to have a team supporting you throughout a transaction, because without that, you are going against professionals that do this every day. Let's say you're a unrepresented buyer. You're trying to negotiate a price with a realtor who does this every day. They're a professional negotiator for the most part. Or you're a seller. You think you're saving money at the end of the day, not having a listing agent, but at the end of the day, you're not netting as much because a for sale by owner property sells for 20, 30, 40% less than what it would with an agent marketing. So, at the end of the day, it's super important to have an agent in your corner and a real estate attorney, on the back end, making sure a transaction's closed.
Well, it's funny. So I had a property that I rented a year ago, and the tenant now wants to buy the property. And of course, the owners call me and they're like, listen, if this doesn't go through, we'll use you to sell it. And I'm like, okay, and like, oh, but she was adamant that she had to have her realtor. And I think it's funny because I was like, so did you send them frequently asked questions? She's like trying to tell me, oh, we don't need to do that because they don't have that at our association. And I'm like, that's not how it works. And they were like, well, if it doesn't go through, we'll come to you. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like, you can only tell people so much till,
100%. I mean, I think a realtor is a heartbeat of the transaction. They are truly the heartbeat of a transaction, and they are super important, super valuable to people. And we have, I'll give you an example on our end. We had two clients approach us, a for sale by owner and a buyer, both without agents. they're contacting our office at 8, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, power calling our office, expecting changes to a contract to be made. When, we're more than happy to do that, but that's not necessarily our role. And we do help, all types of clients, but having a realtor there, they're able to communicate. And the thing is, they're contacting our office 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night with changes that we went over multiple times. So it's just, going back and forth. It's like I said, the communication is key, and having realtors to communicate on your behalf is super, super key, and super important with a transaction, because you can get an answer more immediately. You can get more clarity. Not to say that we can't do it, and we do it, but it's not our role. Our role is to get the deal closed on the back end, make sure title is clear.
I had a lady call me the other day and she's like, can you put together a contract for my father who's selling his property? And I said, okay. And where did you get the price from? And, how do they not know that they're selling it for the right price? Like, I guess people come up with their own numbers. It's kind of weird.
A lot of people Google it. They see a Zillow price. Maybe it's a house in a nice, well-esteemed neighborhood on a golf course with a great view. However, that's the face value of the property. What happens if that is a hoarder's paradise? The entire house smells like cat urine. There's mold everywhere. A realtor is going to know what the price of a house is, and a realistic price of a house. And it's funny, we're laughing because it happens. You go into a house and it is on face value. It could be $1 million house, but then it is not worth that, or it's worth way more.
Right.
Face value is the face value, and that's what Zillow can tell you.
Yeah, that's why I tell people I have to come take a look at your house. Today I was with somebody and there was another apartment that had impact windows and they were 200 square feet bigger. And I said, if in fact this 200 square feet is correct, which I said I will double cross reference, I said, that is about $16,000 difference. That's a lot of money. I'm like, 200 square feet is like a bedroom's 10 by 10.
100%.
So do you not feel that having, an additional 200 square feet is not worth $16,000? I mean,
definitely.
To me, it's pure science. It's numbers. It's very simplistic. So that's me.
There's a a mindset out there where people have, unjustified logic. It's not even logic. It's unjustified thought that a realtor doesn't really do anything in the transaction, which is absolutely false. I mean, you laugh because you hear it.
It's not funny.
You hear it.
I was just with people today and I told them to sell a $200,000, $150,000, $125,000 condo is harder than to sell $1 million property. I have an entire checklist, and the amount of things that we need to get on the checklist. And most of these condo associations don't have the documents, or they make our life miserable. It's not like you're just like, here, I need X, Y, and Z. No, I need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P.
And you're going to alpha, beta, gamma, delta. You're going into the Greek alphabet after that. So,
and then I'm getting C, H, L, O, hello. And, you're making a fraction of what you would make in $1 million property. Now, of course, I said to them, why am I here, right? Well, they add up. And, if you're willing to sell it for the right price, what is the right price? It's the price that a buyer is willing to pay. Look at your weekly saves and views, and, there's just a whole process.
100%. And the agent's the one that's going to be able to do it. You selling property as a layperson, not anything against that, but you're probably going to get undercut. You're going to list your property what you think is, let's say we'll use that $125,000 condo that you're using as an example. Maybe they listed that on their own, or that's their price in their head that they're set on. And then they come and they're only getting offers for 75,000 because of it's the hoarder's paradise that we were talking about, or there's other issues. And you, as an agent, work there to help stage the property correctly, list it correctly, suggest some improvements that could be made that could drastically improve an offer. Just an AC unit being replaced, maybe you have to spend a couple, $1,000 to $20,000 more, but you're making more money, and that's a suggestion for a realtor because they know what sells and at what value.
Well, we're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, I want you to tell us about a cluster that has happened in one of these. Something that's just so outrageous, where you've seen something so screwed up, and let us know like what could really happen. So we're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, Nick's going to tell us. This could happen to you.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FSBO withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
Priority One Credit Union of Florida is a welcoming credit union that makes your financial success our number one priority. We offer lower loan rates, higher deposit rates, and common sense local loan approvals, with nationwide access through shared branching.
Hi, I'm Dina Hennessy, President and CEO at Priority One Credit Union. We are open to the community. Anyone can be a member of our credit union, and we would love to have you.
Contact us today at 954-335-5100. You can also reach us at PriorityOneFL.org. Your financial success is our priority. That's 954-335-5100.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. I'm here today, and I'm talking with Nicholas Fierella, attorney for JK Closing Attorneys, about why you should have a realtor when selling a home, and why it would be stupid to try to do it on your own. We can say stupid on the radio, right? It's not a bad word.
100%.
It's just it's just bad to be stupid.
Exactly. Exactly.
So tell us something that's happened, like a deal that's come into your office. They're not using realtors. What was the most screwed up part of it all?
We have it pretty regularly.
Did you say it happens pretty regularly?
Say once a month, once every 2 months.
Well, they come in, but are they screwed up? Because most people have buyers that say they're going to buy their house and they don't qualify.
Almost everyone is screwed up. That was the point. The one that I can think of the most was a seller disclosure issue. We got an as-is contract one time. I think this was the beginning of last year. It was a for sale by owner and a unrepresented buyer. So we had a deal with no agents, and the seller was under the impression that as is meant they can lie about things with the property because the buyer was to take the property as is. That is not the case. You have your required disclosures that you have to make. Let's say it's leaking or there's mold in the property or whatever. Disclosure it may be. If you know about it and it can materially affect the value of the property, then you need to disclose that. So in this particular case, we had a seller that thought as is meant as is, didn't have a realtor to consult with, and sold a property with all these latent conditions that they tried to cover up. And buyer bought the property, and some of these issues weren't found in inspection. And afterward, I don't know the end result, but I believe there was a lawsuit over, improper disclosures and lack thereof of disclosures for issues with the property. So,
do they want to bring you into this because they're saying, oh, well, we hired you to do the deal?
Well, we were acting as a closing agent. They didn't come to us to bring us into it. We were simply acting as a closing agent,
Oh, okay.
closing the transaction, and involved in the inspection and anything like that. We cleared title. We did our part. I learned about this after the fact, and like I said, I don't know the resolution of what ended up happening, but in a way, the realtor or realtors in the situation act as a shield because they will
Try
disclose
direct you
to
the right
a
way.
seller and direct you the right way. They know what needs to be disclosed. Obviously, if the realtor doesn't know of these issues, they can't direct a seller to disclose certain things. Or, in terms of a buyer, a buyer's unrepresented. So, imagine they go into this and they're not sure what the contract means, what their deadlines are. So from both ways, it can blow up. And in that case, it was a disclosure issue. In other cases, I've seen buyers miss deadlines, or just not care about the deadlines and then try to get a loan on their own, and then they can't get the loan the last second. I mean, various different issues have arisen.
I think
And
buyers
most of
should
them-
be scared to try to do this on their own. I totally
100%.
think they should be scared because
100%.
I mean, even the mortgage lenders don't even know to follow the dates. They
No,
have
half
to
the
be
time
told,
they-
"Hey, I need this."
Half the time they have friends that are lenders. They might be from a different state. They have no clue how Florida works. We have this issue all the time with California lenders where they're operating on a 3-hour time difference. So we're already halfway through our business day when they're getting to the office, so to speak. And then by the
Maybe
time
you're
they get
halfway
on
through your
campus-
business day on those 3 hours. I don't know about me.
Hey, I'm just saying, middle of the day. But it leads to issues, and they don't know what's going on, and that's where a realtor in their corner or in their back pocket really does help. And having a team, having a realtor and a trusted attorney to work together hand in hand to get the file to close will lead to less issues.
So the moral of the story is call
Definitely
JK
use a realtor.
Closings and Laura Sanders.
Definitely. We will work together to get things closed, communicate effectively, and make sure that the seller gets their proceeds that they need and the buyer gets the house that they love and they dreamed of, to walk into that and live into.
So what's a good number for people to reach out to you if they're looking for an attorney?
Call me at the office, 954-779-5000. Again, 954-779-5000. And I know you're going to ask about it. So you can email our legal team, which I'm on there. So legal@jkclosings.com, or you can email me individually. I'm pretty attentive to my email, nick@jkclosings.com.
And if you're looking for a top agent, you should definitely give me a call. Laura Sanders, Remax Direct. I know that I can help make this as seamless as possible and make it easy for you because these transactions these days are not easy, but I can help for you to know, to feel protected because I pretty much try to foreshadow everything that's going to happen before it happens. And that's what you need in these transactions. So
100%.
yeah, we definitely, I can't tell you how many times that I've gotten Nick on the phone at 8:00 at night on a Sunday and said, "Hey, can I bounce this off of you? What do you think? How would you do it?" So with that being said,
Teamwork makes the dream work.
yes. So, and, yeah, other than that, anything else that you wanted to share with us about, why you should use a realtor?
I mean, one thing I was thinking of was, the NAR settlement that happened recently made some people believe that they don't need a realtor, especially on the buying side. But honestly, it has the complete opposite effect of that. The NAR settlement literally makes it a much more professional transaction where the realtor and the buyer have to enter into an agreement before getting home. So therefore, it's ensuring that that buyer's agent is supporting that buyer throughout that transaction, having somebody in the corner. So it's just something that's been on my mind, something heard a lot lately floating around, on top of the fact that realtors aren't necessarily needed. But from the buying side too, is like, oh, I can do this myself. But all you are is entering into shark infested water where there is a, like I said before, somebody that does this regularly, negotiating, and they're going to get their best price for their seller, or get the lowest price for their buyer, and you're trying to do it by yourself.
And experience really matters, because understanding the contract, even down to the last 12 months of meeting minutes, that doesn't mean that there's 12 months of meeting minutes. That means you need whatever was done. And it's being very specific and very literal, because if I say to you, I need your last 12 months of meeting minutes, you might think that you need to get 12 months of meeting minutes, right? Of January, February, March, April, May.
What I talked about with the last year's year-end financial statement, whatever's ready. So we're in 2026, so a lot of people might interpret that as 2025 is ready. No way it's ready. They have to go through their accounting, their finances, and get that set up, for 2025 to be ready. Hopefully ready, now towards the end of next month, but it's not always ready right now. So the contract requires the most recent, that would be 2024 year-end financial statements. So, it's just really important to have somebody on your side that knows what they're doing. And like you said, experience matters. And it would be negligent of you as a, I don't want to say as a layperson, but as a layperson to enter into a contract or to list your property or to go buy a property without a realtor.
Well, I want to thank you, like always, for being part of Making Money with Laura Sanders. And hopefully somebody learned something today. Like, call Laura Sanders, call Nick Fierella with JK Closing Attorneys. And until next week, again, thank you for always listening to Making Money with Laura. Have a great night.